Welcome to episode 59 of the XRM Toolcast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with fellow MVP Matt Beard about his brand new tool, the Dataverse Format Changer. We also talk about what the use case is for the JSON format and how Dataverse for Teams leads the way when it comes to new functionalities. We also end the episode with, Matt ends the episode with a really good dad joke. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to another podcast. How about to another episode of the XRM Toolcast? Jeez, I'm messing this up already. So we're off to a good start already. With me, Daryl, always raising the bar, and my co-host, Scott, Fear the Beard Darrell. Scott, how's it going?
It's very, very well, Daryl. Thank you for that name. Very apt for this episode, I think. Definitely. Yes. I don't think it's not going to be the last time we talk about beards on this episode. But no, it's good. I'm loving all the attention we're getting on Twitter with the whole dad jokes thing from last episode. I've got a whole ton of dad jokes, I could tell, but I just would be, slightly worried that they would be as poorly received as your joke, Daryl.
Well, I wanted to set a low bar so everyone else could raise the bar. Come on.
It's just like you're always raising the bar.
If someone asks you to time a mile, or I guess 3K or something, you're going to do it slow the first time. That way you can say you improved your time, right? Right? Kind of slow ball yourself. Yeah.
No, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. There's always room for I should
always room for improvement that way. Yeah.
Good tip, that one, definitely.
Yep. So our guest today is Mr. Beard himself, who has a first-time guest, but has recently created a brand new tool for the XRM Toolbox, the Dataverse Format Changer, one which I'm sure there are lots and lots of people throughout the world that have said, we've wanted this for so long, and is not nearly as intrusive as the attribute manager is that I've created. So Matt, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you. Afternoon. Good evening. It's good. Thank you. So,
we've heard you've been a busy bee lately. So you recently shoved out this new tool. We want to go ahead and give a quick rundown on how it started and why you made it and what it does.
Yeah, the tool. So it came about when there was a blog post came out from Microsoft about how they were enabling this feature, basically, and it's a feature that I know I've certainly wanted for a long time, and I know other people have. But the official Microsoft documentation basically only had it in a way of doing it in Web API and not a lot else. And I'm a C# person at the back of my mind and would always prefer to do that. And they stated in their post that the user interface will be a little bit behind of where it's going to be. So there's no way of doing it, even though they've made the magic behind the scenes, which in my head then immediately started screaming XRM Toolbox. And then Carl Cookson, Cookie, sent me a message about it saying, have you seen this? And we were chatting about it a bit, and he said he was too busy. So I thought, well, what? It's been a while. It's been a few years since I've last released the tool. So I thought, why not? Let's get the clock. Let's get a race against the clock to see if I can get it out there. And it's out there and about there. So yeah, it's the simplest idea of it is the behind the scenes format. So not the column types. They have to stay the same, but the formats on top of that mimic certain behaviors, like the way that the control renders on the screen. They can now be changed where they've never been able to before. Ultimately, it sounds like a very small and simple change, but for those people that rely on it, and I know there's ISV products that rely on them being configured in the right way, that to now have that power to change them is very beneficial to businesses, I think, at this point.
Well, you say it's a small change, but anybody who's done any kind of extensive customizations to Dataverse and have made that mistake of setting the format and thinking, I'll go back and changing it later, and of course ignoring the numerous little warnings that come up, in the user interface saying you cannot change this, and then you're like, no, and then you have to delete it, and then you have to use another tool to kind of move your data from one column over to another column, and it always just seemed like an odd restriction, right? Because like you say, it's only actually affecting the user interface rendering. So it just seemed like a strange trick. I guess it's back in the day where there wasn't the differentiation between the format and the actual core data type. But yeah, it's amazing. When I saw that you'd done that tool, I was like, this is going to save so much time. It really is.
Yeah, and as a data nerd myself, to get those things in is great for me. I mean, I'm a stickler for it. So if I see someone's account that says email address and it's a typed text or whatever, it's the little things like that I'd like to get those things perfect for people and try and endeavour to do that. So if I can help other people do that as well, then it's satisfying for me as well.
Okay, I'm going to give a plug for why not to use my tool and why to use your tool, right? Because if you did have the case where you had a text field and you didn't format it as an email address and you wanted to after the fact, before this tool, before this opportunity for Microsoft to be able to change this, you could use the attribute manager and you could go through and it would delete it and it would re-add it and it would update everything. First of all, that's really slow. It requires like multiple publishes. Second of all, if it's in production, now you're dealing with having to migrate data. And if you're using managed solutions, that's an even bigger pain in the rear to have to do that kind of stuff because you have to manage each step and deploy it to prod. All these horrible things of why you wouldn't want to do that if you could help it. And as long as it's in dev, it's not that big of an idea, but it's still, kind of dangerous. Where this is like, way simpler. You're not deleting it. You're not recreating it. You're not creating some temporary field. You're just saying, hey, display as a email rather than just plain text. Done. Which is way better than what the attribute manager does in that case. There are other cases where you will still need to use the attribute manager, but in this case, yeah, if you can fix it with the Dataverse Format Changer, please do. So that's awesome.
Not to mention all the dependencies and things like that you have on fields. There's so many different places that they could be used in code and other control bindings that, changing the actual attribute is so invasive. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah, and then then you've got to think about API requests. That's one compared to how many is that going to be. And the other thing
not to think about that.
Well, exactly. Then the other thing I like to think about is I'm a stickler for name standards. So email address 1 should be email address 1 and things like that. And if you're going to do a temporary field, then you have to delete the old one and move it somewhere else. And you either have email address 1-1, which just makes me feel sick at the thought of it, but I have no doubt that people will have done that. And just those things that you just solve all those problems with a click.
I've just thought of a new segment that we could have. We could have like Matt blind reacting to people's schemas.
Well, the things so it fits quite well with my other tool. So my other tool that already exists, that's been out there for a while, is again all trying to keep data in the format it's supposed to be. And I've seen some horror stories of the mess that people have got the data into with the other tool.
Yeah. I do like that idea as a show, though. We could have a little like spit bucket or a puke bucket right next to them, and just casing.
Just have like a split screen. Matt's face, the Matt cam, and then the code and the schema. And as we scroll through the schema, just watching Matt's reaction. Yeah, that's good. Of course, I would say Matt B. You're Matt B2 now, right?
Matt B2. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's we have to talk about Matt as Matt B2 because Matt B1, of course, is the famous Matt Barber from Microsoft. So Matt B2's blind reaction to your schema. Submit your schema here and see Matt react in live.
May contain explicit content.
Yes. Yeah, we could challenge people to send the worst schemas they've possibly seen. Yeah, like new underscore. Right.
Yeah. New underscore is the main one. New underscore. I mean, actually, do you know what? It's not now. The new one that gets me is all CR. CR, whatever.
CBR2 underscore. Yeah. Commentator service publisher.
Yeah, there you go. That's the new that, isn't it?
Yeah, Daryl, you're looking very distracted. Come on, back.
Well, I'm trying to find the
You're
tool.
Looking for a schema, aren't you?
I'm looking for an image of this thing to describe to the users what it looks like because it's so new. I haven't had a chance to download it. I just knew there was this post out, and someone's like, "Hey, why don't you add this to it?" I was like, "It's not really. It shouldn't belong there. It sounds like something better than an attribute manager." And so then Matt came out with it. So I was like, "Great," but I'm not. It must not have been approved yet. Then
no, it's in there. It should be in there. Yeah, it's in there. So it's basically you've got a grid on the left hand side. Well, you've got a drop down box top left, which is picking your table. Let's try and get modern terminology correct. So you pick your table top left, which then changes the grid to be all the columns on the left-hand side with its current type and format. And then it's got a drop-down box on it. So you can just click on that drop-down box, then change it from text to rich text to URL to whatever. And then the other benefit of the thing that's in there as well, that just a sidetrack, because this reminded me of it, is that there's 2 new data types. So we can use the new data types with this new tool as well.
So JSON and what was the other one?
Something else that can't be used in a relational table.
Yeah. I mean, the JSON one was interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I've never used that one yet. Does that actually like format it as JSON and validate it when you put it out there, or what does that do? Because I've done that like manually myself by, having a little drop down that says, "Hey, this system setting is a JSON thing," and then I would either create a little web resource that would have the actual. This is back in the day now, but I would, maybe PC have control today, but I would have created a little web resource that takes that and displays that in a little JSON viewer and validates it for me. What happens when you select JSON? What is it? Does it do anything special?
Well, depends where you're doing it from. If you're doing it from like a standard table within Dataverse, then it gives you an error saying you can't. So you can't use it on relational tables. It's a limitation right now with this JSON one. So yeah, its use case is interesting. It's only used in non-SQL-like stores, is their official note on that. So I'm trying to understand the use case of it.
Stores.
Yeah, that's
so
like audit
storage. Yeah. And yeah.
So its use case is limited, but I'm sure someone's got a use case for it, right? They wouldn't do otherwise.
I guess it's like the Cosmos DB type storage stuff where you're storing big bits of data that's non-indexed and you're kind of reading it in. Well, last time I saw it, didn't it say internal use only, or have they removed that now?
No, I don't believe their documentation isn't saying that on their official Microsoft Docs of the format conversions.
Yeah.
Because there is other ones that are internal use only. So email body, for example, that's those ones. But yeah, the JSON one is not advertised as such.
Yeah. Well, wasn't the other one rich text or something like that?
Yeah, rich text. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's interesting. Because like the email body has always been this special thing that you get all the nice HTML rich text formatting inside that rendering. So I've not tried it, but it'd be interesting to see if you make it as a rich text format, it actually shows you, with the formatting and things like that. That'd be quite good. But I wonder how long it's going to take for a lot of this support to actually get into the Dataverse table designer, because this shows now how the teams are working. You've got the Dataverse services back-end team somewhat separately to the make powerapps.com team, and they're one's doing all of the work up front, and then the rest team is then following up on that and creating the UI. So it's quite nice to see actually that in motion. And it also kind of goes to show you that they got a much better separation of concerns, whereas before it was all a bit mixed up and it was like, you're never very sure. But I bet you, here's my prediction, I bet you that the support for changing the formats will appear in Dataverse for Teams first. Because it seems to be the testing ground that they put, like the PowerFX calculated columns that's just come out. That's just in Dataverse for Teams. So, they're seeing how it works, seeing if there's any issues, and then they kind of roll that out to the rest of the Dataverse. So I bet you'll appear there first. We'll see.
Yeah, well, you saying that is what made... Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to talk about, because that seems to be that there is this more so split of... they used to get a feature and have its user interface working at the same time, and all those things will come out at the same time, whereas I think Microsoft understand a bit more now that there is people like us that can bridge that gap in an interim, and if the back end is ready to go, there's no point them sitting on it. If someone like me is willing to plug that gap for them until that UI comes out, why not, right? I mean, there's no point sitting on this code for so long and not releasing it. And again, I think the PowerFX thing is the same thing. They've obviously got the technology there that seems to work. They've got it working enough that I think it's now is it GA in Dataverse for Teams? Which means they must be doing some sort of testing to that level to see if it then scales up. So there is this quicker turnaround of, fine, do you know what, if the UI is slightly behind, then whatever, we'll deal with it. And I think that actually has helped because of, like you say, the make.powerapps people have this different area now. I mean, we're all still wanting parity with the old experience, and that whilst we don't want to go to the old things as much as we sometimes have to, that is slowly reducing.
Definitely. But I love the fact that everything that you can do in the back end is done through make.powerapps.com is done through a public API. It's like this sort of contract that they have now, whereas that there shouldn't be anything that's sort of closed off behind a private API that the portal uses. It's all done through a publicly exposed API. So, if you did want to automate that stuff, then, it's there for you to do.
It feels like we're finally at where Azure DevOps or Azure itself has been at for so many years, where they're like, hey, it's command line first. We're going to create all the command line stuff first, and then we're going to actually put it in the UI in the portal. So I think Microsoft's like, well, duh, that works for that. This should work for this. And I agree with him. And it's, this map may turn into the future ribbon workbench where, it's been 10-ish years and they still haven't actually put it in the UI yet. It could do that. I doubt it, because seems like a much simpler change in their end to deal with, because there's not even a UI change besides like allowing it and then calling that API. But yeah, maybe it does.
I think Unified Interface was the start of that journey, because Unified Interface was the first time that you could run Network Tools or Fiddler or whatever your interception tool of choice is, and you could see that making a new account, making a new contact was just web API requests. Historically, in the old interface, it was a horrible request that you wouldn't really want to try and recreate. So I think again, that's this idea of that they build their tech using the same thing they tell us to use now, and there's not this mixed signal. I think
definitely
that helps.
I think the other Matt B has to sleep better at night, doesn't he? Like Matt Barber, like just with these changes that we're seeing from our end, like that like if we were in charge of the app and we knew kind of what was going on in the background before. Not that we were excited about it, like, oh, this is kind of crazy. But now that we're seeing like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is way cleaner. Like, I'm assuming he has to be sleeping better at night, and the whole team as a whole, knowing where they want to go and how much farther they want to push it, and having where they're starting from now just seems so much cleaner than what we've had before. So
I'm sure we'll find a way
definitely
to bug him and make it a problem again.
I'm sure Matt sleeps perfectly well, It's, maybe we need to, next time we see him, just ask him about his sleeping habits, and we can report back if people really want to know.
Yeah, we'll see if we can corner him down in Houston, actually. Well, I don't know if he'll be there or not, but if he is, we'll see if we can corner him, get him on the show again.
Yeah. Matt, how many hours of sleep do you get a night? These are important questions that we need answering.
Yeah, we don't care about no roadmap. We just want to know your...
No, exactly. We just need...
Yeah.
I mean, last time I checked on this interesting point about the unified interface, Matt, you were saying about, how it's web API calls. Because last time I checked, I'm pretty sure there was still some little bits of the calls that it makes which were not publicly advertised API calls. They were going through the web API, but they were using, custom actions effectively, or custom APIs that were specifically for like filtering lookups and stuff like that. I should probably check again, but I'm pretty sure I saw them. But it would be nice to just see it all done completely through. And I think with the move to PCF being a kind of a primary delivery mechanism for the unified interface team, I expect that's probably going to happen, because no longer are they creating these these controls that are sort of like out of the box. They're controls that are just the same as anybody else could make a control in a sense for PCF control. Like the Wave 2 2020 grid is really pleasing to see. That is a PCF control. Admittedly, there's a little bit of work still to go on it, but it's a control that like anyone could write. It's not something it's got using special techniques that only Microsoft can use, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's much less them and us than there ever has been before.
It's the way it should be, definitely.
So Matt, you mentioned the Dataverse Format Changer as this tool, and you had a previous tool. What's a previous tool you have in the XM Toolbox?
So the previous tool I had, it originally was the data export validation service, something, data export validation checker tool, something like that. And then it got renamed because Data Export Service sort of disappeared to become, with all the Azure signups stuff. But ultimately, it's database level check-in, or whatever they call it, whatever it is behind the scenes. And it's doing enforcing metadata checks, basically. So the simple things, and in fact, there was a conversation that I was in today, was that you can go in and you can delete an option set value from your choice list. But actually, that value still persists behind the scenes on the record. So it's gone, but it's still there. And then if someone was to reuse that same option set value with a different piece of text, actually you've then got incorrect data because you've reused that and you didn't realise. And then other things like if you reduce a string field down from 100 characters to 50, then that isn't enforced in the database, so it doesn't truncate it, but then it makes your record unusable and unsavable. So basically it goes through your system and you can give it a bunch of tests for every field, and you can say, does it match its specified metadata in the Dataverse configuration? And then you can run other tests like regex matching. So does it look like an email address? Does it look like a US phone number? And you can just start getting a basic idea of your data there. Because historically, that stuff used to break the data export service. And that's why it originally came about, was to help people fix that. And then it just sort of got rebranded, but still lives there. Because like I say, as a data nerd, to go in and see that people have got 50% of their leads have a closed status that doesn't map to any text. Now you think, well, there must have been something important at some point, and I'm going to guess a marketer has come up with a demand to go, yeah, let's change that, and not quite thought of the bigger picture. Not that I'm blaming marketing there, so sorry if marketers listen to this podcast. But yeah, just to try and keep it all in sync and nice and match what it's supposed to do, basically.
Cool.
Nice.
So those are the two tools for the toolbox. Do you have any other tools outside the toolbox you've been working on or done?
Not really. So I run Connector Gallery with Thomas Sansour. I'm going to butcher his last name there, so sorry to him there for listening to this. Which is more of a initiative for people sharing their custom connectors. I love custom connectors. That's the other thing I talk quite a lot about on. And I've published a load out sort of on a blog, and then me and Thomas got together and we chatted with Guido, who ran PCF Gallery, and sort of tried to fill that gap with the Connector Gallery, which is a place for people to publish them. Microsoft did then release the Independent Publishers Program, which sort of initially felt like competition, and obviously Microsoft are going to win that, but actually when you drill down to it, ours, I think, is still got a place because it, again, plugs those gaps. So, for example, there is people that have put a connector in that extend Dataverse within Power Automate. That's never going to be able to go into independent publishers because Microsoft own the Dataverse connector. That's never going to get authorized through. There is other things in there like the C# code that people can now run in Power Automate. Some of that just doesn't fit as a connector within the Power Automate ecosystem that Microsoft run, but people have a use case for it still. So it's a middle ground of people just building something they're proud of and sharing it, basically. So that's me and Thomas run that as well.
Well, the PCF Gallery is a good sort of analogy as well, because that is it isn't so much about a place for a load of reusable components that are, you just kind of add into your system and using. It's kind of more like a showcase, a place to put stuff where people can learn from, people can reuse if they like. Whereas with the community custom connectors from Microsoft, they're providing a little bit more rigor there to try and make it so that you can just go and grab that connector and use it in your system, and there's a little bit of approval mechanism there and all that kind of stuff to make sure it adheres to certain standards. So some people say, well, actually they're the same thing, but I think exactly as you say, PCF Gallery and the Connector Gallery is more of a playground, a showcase where you can just go and see what's possible, not only but also sample code and stuff that you can reuse. That's a great initiative.
Power Automate sort of prides itself on this being this low code platform. And I've seen all sorts of people that are not devs go in and do custom connectors, and I've given talks around the world to people and they've gone, I'd like to do one, and they build one and they share it, and it's great to see, which is fantastic. But then there is a step for if they want to go to the next level and they qualify for the independent publishers and they want to do that, then great, I'll support them on it. But there is a massive skill gap jump in that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, for a low coder to then understand this idea of forking and branching and merging it across and doing pull requests all in GitHub, for someone that doesn't do code, that I don't want them to feel like they can't do it and then not share what they've worked on. So that's why we try and be this middle ground of just give us a form, give us a Microsoft Forms, and we'll add it onto the website for you, and people can just go to your blog post and read it. So just trying to promote people's stuff, really.
Perhaps it's even like a stepping stone to the independent publishers. I mean, maybe you could get to a point where you can sort of nominate stuff from the Connect gallery to say, well, actually, this really deserves to be in the independent gallery, and work with the independent publishers and work with Microsoft in that respect.
Yeah, well, that's exactly one of the things I wanted to do. Is I wanted to even potentially automate it for them and help them and go, right, look, you've given us this Swagger file, or you've given us whatever you've got. This is the steps you've got to go through, and I'm sure at some point I could build some sort of pipeline that does it for them, or helps them through it and helps them understand it. Because I'm only trying to educate people. So yeah, I agree.
It's almost like a kind of like a reputation type thing. So, if it gets enough votes or something, because I guess, it's a proving ground as well. So if other people have used it with success, then it probably means that it is of the caliber that could go through.
Yeah.
Very nice.
This is all at connector.gallery, right? Just like we have the what is it, PCF.gallery? This is connector.gallery, right?
Exactly. It looks exactly the same. Guido very politely let us use his code base as a base for ours, so it literally looks like a sister site of that. So yeah.
All right. Is there like one out there that is like the most popular, the one that people use the most, or?
They vary. For me, I'm biased. I always What 3 Words is always the example I go to, and people always like What 3 Words, and it's got a nice little example. If you've ever used it, it's a nice little thing to demo to people. So that's probably the one that people use the most. You also find that a lot of them don't really have a practical usage in the business world. IMDb. No one's going to really plug an IMDb connector into any proper business process flows, but it's cool, right? I mean, I did a talk at Scottish Summit earlier this year, which was I controlled my Xbox with Power Automate. That has no place in a business whatsoever, but I could still share that because people could just go and learn from it and see what it's doing. So, probably What 3 Words is the one that I would say people got most use out of. But I'm sure Thomas will look at the stats and prove me wrong.
Stats are a great thing.
Always great things. So we've covered that. Anything else we need to cover? Or any other things you want to share, Matt?
Oh, jeez. So what have we got? There is a
Places
user
you'll be
group.
speaking at even too.
So there's a user group to be announced in November. So hopefully there was due to be one Wednesday in London. Unfortunately, that can't happen now with all the code restrictions. Microsoft have decided that it's not relevant to hold it at Microsoft yet, so they pulled the plug, unfortunately, on that one. So we're rescheduling that in for a November session. So I think this might even be an exclusive to you. I don't know if we've officially announced it yet, which means Andy Bibby's going to shout at me if he listens to this.
You've got a week to make it official because this doesn't come out for another week.
I'm just going to say November-ish in London is going to be a user group, which is nice to have.
This is an exclusive announcement.
Yeah, you can have that. That's fine. And then I'm doing all the groundwork for South Coast Summit as well, so I was lucky to be asked to help out Mark and Ian in running South Coast Summit in Scotland, which is a massive UK event. Not South Coast Summit, sorry, Scottish Summit. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, South Coast.
There's too many summits.
The geography of England and the UK is not...
Yes, sorry. Yes. No, so I'm not helping out South Coast Summit, though I am attending that next in 3 weeks, so I've got a session there with Data8. And then, most of my time is going on organising the Scottish Summit with Ian, Mark, Zoe, Anna and Janet.
That's awesome.
Cool.
And Data8, do you want a quick plug for how things are going with Data8?
So Data8, so I mean, I've worked there for nearly a decade now, I think it is at this point. We are a data quality company, ISV, with full-on integrations into Dataverse for phone validation, email validation, duplicate detection, merging of any records at any volumes automatically. and addressing and basically anything to do with data within native Dataverse integrations. And yeah, it's going very well. It's very, very popular. We've got customers all over the world now, which is why I don't work 9 to 5 anymore. I have support calls for Australia and US and everything all the time. So yeah, we're quite lucky. We travel the world with it, and when people could travel the world, and yeah, it's going very well. So yeah, that's Data8 if you ever have data quality things.
Well, you said you're a self-proclaimed data geek, or was it a data nerd? I can't remember which one you used. We can use that, have that as a separate discussion. But those are your credentials. You work with data like every day, in your job. So it's the tool that you created for changing the data types. Obviously, are going to help customers as well, I'm guessing.
The amount of times, so I work with Mark Carrington, who's another MVP who I know you've had on here, who did the SQL CDS tool. The amount of times that we have referred to his tool or my tools and used our tools in our professional lives as well is crazy. The amount of times that we have to send one of our own blog posts to one of our own clients to them understand their problems is just, it feels weird. We try and send each other's because I don't like sending my own blog and he doesn't like sending his, so we try and alternate each other's just because otherwise it's a bit weird.
That's just so funny that you like keep tally of how many times you've sent your own versus Mark, and maybe just send an email to Mark and say, could you send my blog post over to this, because I don't refer.
Pretty much, pretty much. There's often things where, so because we do a lot of stuff with duplicates and merging, there is lots of intricacies with the merging functionality within Dataverse. So we know probably more about that than 90% of people, just because we've dug into so many systems and so many weird configurations that this helped. Mark then wrote a big blog post on permissions on a merge. So when a client comes to us and says, I've got this error, Mark can just refer to his own blog post and just say, well, here we go. But then, normally I send that one and we go from there.
Well, at least you guys are lazy developers, in that you don't have to type up the blog post every single time, type up the email every single time you write a blog post and share the blog post. So that's always good.
We do that thing I would imagine that you all do, which is you Google it and then you come with your own blog post in the Google response. That's normally what happens.
It's scary when that happens. But I really think that those are the best blog posts, the ones, and usually are the most popular ones, where there is sort of providence. There's a real life use case behind it, and it comes from experience of actually working in the field with customers. And you can usually see the difference between those kind of posts that are more theoretical, more art of the possible, versus those that have come from real problem solving for customers. And I think those kind of blog posts really stand the test of time, and people keep on referring to them as you're saying.
My most popular blog post recently was one that it was a problem we had internally that then two clients within, it's like a bus, you never get this question, you always get the same questions all the time. So we had a problem internally with Dataverse storage, which I'm sure everybody has problems with Dataverse storage and that alerts that you've gone over. And then we had some other clients that said they had the same problem. So we did a thing internally, and I ended up building this SQL CDS command that I think it translates to fetch XML eventually, that basically found what, certainly for us, we deemed to be useless emails. They were things like internal emails that have been tracked, or spam marked emails that have been tracked, because Outlook tracks everything and everything under the sun. And it was a go-to, basically a command to find some records that we sent to a client, and they went, oh yeah, actually, we deleted them as well. And they saved like 15-20% of their Dataverse storage just with this single command. And it's basically doing a join from an email to every potential activity party. But then if it's got anything other than a system user, then it stays. So basically it can only be linked to a system user or nothing, because most of the time they're irrelevant. You would assume that most emails should be against the contact, the lead, an account or something. If internal emails to internal emails, I'm sure people have use cases for, but we certainly didn't. And it saved us a massive amount of storage. So yeah, it's again, like you say, it's the blog posts that come from an idea from us that you get a client go, yeah, that is our problem as well. And then someone else goes, yeah, that's our problem. As soon as you put them online, other people are searching for it, and that's when you start seeing the traffic of so many problems we all share that you don't realise.
Yeah.
There's so many memes of people that, it's like, I ask a question and there's one person in the world that's asked it before and they have the answer and you're like bowing down to them. Thank you so much for getting this figured out for me. You saved me so much time. They will never know it. They have no idea. But yeah, it's just funny how wonderful the world of ones and zeros that can perfectly store everything and call them up whenever you want them at the touch of a drop of a hat really makes makes it awesome to find those sorts of gold mines.
Absolutely.
So Matt, normally I've been trying to do this and I failed this time, so I apologize. But I try to read off their Twitter profiles. I'm going to do that now, maybe kind of as a send off, and maybe if there's anything else you want to add, well, let's do that. So Microsoft BizApp.
Best radio voice. Listen to this, Matt. It's really good.
No, I wasn't planning on changing my voice at all, but for Scott, I'll see what I can do. Let's see. Matt Beard, Microsoft BizApp's MVP, net developer, power platform enthusiast, Xbox player, husband to an awesome wife, dad to a beautiful girl, and a crazy dog. Matt Beard. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, round of applause.
Is that better? Yeah. I have a funny voice that I try to do. Way back in the day, I watched, I'm getting off topic, but this is me. There's a Mickey Mouse Jack and the Beanstalk that I watched when I was little. And there's a part where this giant says pistachios and green gravy, and he like can't say it right. So it's pistachios, and green gravy. And I try to like say this voice, and my kids ask me to talk in that voice all the time. It's the stupidest thing in the world. But yeah, sometimes funny voices or stupid voices can earn you the love of countless little kids. Or your own little kids. Or
sad story. Your kids can say, Dad, do the voice. That's just amazing. Like in the most inappropriate of moments. But
yes, you're in a funeral or something. Dad, do your voice. No, we're in a funeral. Save that for later.
Well, I'm half hoping you're going to go back into your dad jokes because I've got my one saved up as my go-to.
Well, I think we can limit ourselves to one dad joke an episode, and if you've got one, I'm ready for it. We can. Maybe it's a challenge to see if Scott and I can figure it out here.
Have you got the in-demand claps ready for once I've given it? And the laughter, the laughter track. So this is.
I'll give the soft round of applause is what I'll probably give.
Wow, does it class as a dad joke? Well, we'll find out. So I always remember as a kid when I was at school, and every day they had a word of the day. So the teacher said to me, "Today's letter of the day, is the letter M. So what I want you to do is tell me something that you're not very good at that starts with the letter M." So I said spelling.
Brilliant. I'm with it. I love it.
Very good.
Winner, chicken dinner. Good, man. Appreciate that one.
That's definitely, that is a quality dad joke. And then you have to wait there as your kids work it out. Have you worked it out yet?
But Dad, spelling starts with an S. Yes.
Yes.
Well, we'll tell that one to Jonas and have to explain it to him. It'll take a while. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your tool and for your tools and for the work that you do on the side for the community. Benefits us all. We all appreciate that.
Absolutely.
If anyone wants to get a hold of you to comment or to thank you for any of the work you've done, how can they do that?
So the blog is mbeard.co.uk, or Twitter probably is the social media platform of choice. I'm not very good at any of the other ones, but Twitter I read a little bit too much. So Twitter is Matty Beard.
Matty Beard, I like that. All right, well that's Scott, how our listeners can get hold of our guests. How can they get hold of us?
Well, Daryl, funny you should ask. You can get hold of us by email at cast@xrmtoolbox.com or on Twitter and LinkedIn at xrmtoolcast. We'd love to hear from you.
Feel free to tweet your dad jokes to @xrmtoolcast as well. I think we can keep that going if we want, huh?
I reckon so. Yeah.
All right.
I've got a few that I'm going to keep under wraps for just to bring out at the just secret weapon deploy.
We'll take a poll, see if we want to have just dad jokes only, like where we try not to laugh at each other and see how that goes. Yeah.
Hey, we could have like a whole try not to laugh thing, It's just, yeah, I reckon we can do that. Maybe we could have that as a segment with every guest. Try not to laugh.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. And have a good weekend, man.
And you. Thank you for having me.
Take care, Matt.
This has been the Extrum Toolcast with Jonas Rapp and Daryl Labar. If you have any questions for Jonas or I, or suggestions for future episodes, please send them to cast@extrumtoolbox.com or tweet to Extrum Toolcast.